There was a man in my office last Tuesday, I'll call him Marcus, who spent 40 minutes telling me about his ex-wife's wedding. The new husband gave a speech, hands in his pockets, said something about how he just shows up. That's it. Not dramatic, not poetic. He shows up. And Marcus said, I kept waiting for the part where he says something impressive, and it never came. He sat with that for a second and then laughed. Not a happy laugh, more like the air going out of something. I think that's why she left me, he said. I was always trying to be impressive. If that lands somewhere in your chest right now, you're in the right place. I'm Sarah, psychologist, single mom, recovering physicist, a woman who spent a good chunk of her own life mistaking intensity for love. Today we're talking about the people who show up quietly, the unglamorous ones, the ones who don't perform devotion, they just keep arriving. If any of this finds you, leave a comment. Tell me who showed up quietly for you, or who you've been quietly showing up for. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because I'd love for us to keep doing this, week after week, ordinary Tuesday after ordinary Tuesday. Now let me tell you what I mean. After Ben died, I didn't cry at the funeral. I planned it instead. Flowers, seating, a string quartet, with this terrifying clinical efficiency, like grief was a problem set I could solve if I just organized it correctly. People remember the big things about loss. The funeral, the phone call. What nobody warns you about is the mug. His mug, still in the dish rack, days later. Nobody had moved it because nobody wanted to be the one who erased the last ordinary thing he'd touched. I think about that mug a lot when people ask me what love actually looks like, because it isn't the proposal under the stars, though I had one of those too, and it was extraordinary. It's the dish rack. It's the unremarkable objects a person leaves behind simply by living near you every day. The quiet ones don't announce themselves. They just keep showing up in the small, boring places, until one day they're gone, and the boring place is the thing that breaks you. So here's the trap, and I fell into it for over a decade. After Ben, I married a man who was loud about being present. He loved introducing me at parties. My wife, the doctor, loved the performance of partnership. What he didn't love was the actual texture of my days. The version of me that needed someone at 2 a.m. with a sick kid wasn't the version he'd signed up to display. We mistake confidence for strength. We mistake declaration for devotion. And look, I did this too. We mistake the size of a gesture for the size of someone's care. A grand apology after a blow-up can feel like more love than a person who never blew up in the first place. It isn't. It's just louder. The quiet ones rarely win the toast at the wedding. They're the ones who drove you to the airport at 5 a.m. without being asked twice. I had a client, I'll call her Renata, who almost stopped coming to see me in her 3rd month because she said, nothing dramatic is happening, so I don't know what we're doing here. I asked her what her week looked like. She said her sister had texted her every single morning for 2 years straight, just one line, thinking of you, no need to reply. Renata had never once mentioned it before because it didn't feel like a story. It felt like furniture, permanent, unremarkable. And so, that's the thing about quiet devotion. It's nearly invisible to the person receiving it, precisely because it never asks to be noticed. We're trained to look for the climax, the grand rescue. We don't build emotional memory around the 700th ordinary Tuesday someone simply didn't leave. I've told you before about the night my father found me slumped over my parents' kitchen table at 3 a.m., an empty whiskey bottle next to me. I won't retell the whole thing today. What I want you to know is what he did, because it's the entire chapter distilled. He didn't yell, he didn't lecture me about wasted potential, about MIT, about everything I was throwing away. He picked me up, carried me to the couch, and sat in a chair across the room. And he just stayed there, watching, until the sun came up. That's it. That's the whole heroic act. A man sitting in a chair, refusing to leave. I've spent 20 years since then studying the human mind professionally, And I still think that's the most sophisticated piece of psychology I've ever witnessed. He didn't fix anything that night. He just made it structurally impossible for me to be alone in it. There's a reasonably well-understood pattern in how people form attachments. Our nervous systems are tuned to notice novelty and intensity, not consistency. A new, dramatic gesture lights something up. 1,000 identical, dependable Tuesdays do not, even though the Tuesdays are doing all the actual work of keeping us safe. So if you've got someone in your life who isn't thrilling, who is, frankly, a little boring in the best way, who just keeps calling, keeps showing up, keeps choosing the unglamorous task of being there, that person is not the consolation prize. That person is the architecture. Everything else is decoration. You know the story of the car. Gray Tuesday, spilled milk, my son Ethan, 7 years old, asking from the back seat, "Mom, are you happy?" I've told you how I pulled over and finally let myself fall apart. What I don't talk about as often is what happened 30 seconds later. A small hand landed on my shoulder. He didn't say anything wise. He didn't fix it. He just said, "It's okay, Mommy, you can be sad," and left his hand there. A 7-year-old, quietly doing the most psychologically advanced thing a person can do for another person, tolerating their pain without trying to make it disappear. We don't teach that. Nobody hands you a manual that says the highest form of love is sometimes just not flinching. Not every quiet person stays. I want to be honest about that, because this isn't a fairy tale about devotion always winning. I had a friend in my Portland years, call her Dana, who used to check in every single week without fail for almost 3 years while I was rebuilding everything after my divorce. And then, slowly, she stopped. No fight, no dramatic falling out. Life just filled in around the gap she used to occupy. And one day I realized it had been 4 months. So, the quiet ones aren't owed anything for being quiet, and they're not exempt from leaving. But here's the reframe I want you to sit with. Their leaving usually doesn't look like an explosion either. It looks like silence, the same texture as their presence did. Which means if you want to keep a quiet person in your life, you generally have to notice them on purpose, because they will not make noise to remind you they're still there, and they may not make noise on their way out either. There's a cost to being the quiet one too, and I don't want to romanticize this into martyrdom. The people who consistently show up without performance often go unacknowledged for exactly that reason. Nobody throws a parade for reliability. I've sat across from clients, men and women both, who've spent 15 years being someone's steady ground and never once heard thank you for just staying, because staying didn't look like an event worth narrating. If you are that person in someone's life, the one who shows up quietly, who doesn't ask for credit, I want to say something to you directly. You are allowed to need to be seen for it. Wanting acknowledgement for years of unglamorous loyalty isn't neediness, it's just being human. Here's what I'd ask you to walk away with today. Stop auditioning the people in your life for drama, and start noticing who's still in the room after the drama is over. The dish rack, the chair by the couch, the hand on the shoulder that doesn't try to fix anything. That's not the absence of love. That is, very often, exactly what love actually is. Unglamorous, repetitive, and still here. And maybe go find the quiet person in your own life today, the one who never makes a scene about staying, and tell them you noticed. I think about Marcus a lot, actually, the man with the mug story, except his was a wedding toast instead of a dish rack. I just show up. He thought it sounded unimpressive when the new husband said it. I told him I thought it might be the most romantic sentence I'd heard all year. We spend so much energy looking for the love that announces itself, the love that gives speeches, the love that feels like a movie. And somewhere along the way, we walk right past the person quietly leaving the porch light on for us, every single night, without saying a word about it. So if someone in your life shows up quietly, not loudly, not impressively, just reliably, I hope today gives you a reason to look at them differently. And if you've been the quiet one, the one who stays without the speech, I hope you know that the staying was never small. It was the whole thing. If this one found you somewhere honest, Tell me about it in the comments. Who's been your quiet person, and have you ever told them? And if you'd like more of these conversations, stay close, subscribe, and we'll keep meeting here. Same couch, same tea, whenever you need it. Until then, take care of the people who show up quietly, and let them take care of you back.